Hey everyone, welcome to Judging for the Win. I'm Dave, and this is my daily ruling. Today's question was suggested by a viewer. Thanks to Overseer76 for this one. Amy has Gollum, patient plotter, on the battlefield, and she wants to proc its top ability. Can she do that by activating its bottom ability, sacrificing Gollum itself? Alright, so at first glance, this seems like a pretty plausible thing that you might be able to do. Unfortunately, this play is not possible. You can only activate Gollum's bottom ability if Gollum is already in your graveyard. To understand exactly why this is, we'll need to recall a couple of important facts about how abilities work. So I think it should be pretty uncontroversial to say that if you had a Viscera Seer in your graveyard, you couldn't just sacrifice a creature to scry one. You would need the Viscera Seer to be on the battlefield to do that. But why? It doesn't say anywhere on the card that it has to be on the battlefield for this ability to work. Well, no, it doesn't, but it does say that in the comprehensive rules. Specifically, it says so right here. Abilities of creatures normally only function while the creature that has them is on the battlefield. Of course, this isn't the end of the story. There are lots of exceptions for abilities that require special treatment to perform their intended game function. So again, hopefully it would not be very controversial to say that this Bonebind Orator would need to be in your graveyard for you to activate its ability. And bingo, we have an exception that allows this to work. This ability has a cost that cannot be paid unless Bonebind Orator is in your graveyard. Therefore, this ability only functions in this zone. This doesn't really help us for the situation from the original problem statement, though. It is possible to sacrifice a creature and pay a black mana, no matter what zone Gollum is in. Gollum's ability falls under a different exception, though. An ability whose cost or effect specifies that it moves the object it's on out of a particular zone functions only in that zone. Because the effect of Gollum's ability specifies that it moves Gollum out of your graveyard, this ability functions only while Gollum is in your graveyard. It is therefore not possible to activate this ability while Gollum is in any other zone, including the battlefield. Now, if you read the text of that rule really carefully when I had it on screen, you might have noticed there was a caveat. This exception does not apply if a previous part of the ability's effect or cost specifies that it is put into that zone. This does not match with what's happening in the Gollum ability, though. It is true that if you sacrifice Gollum, that would result in it being put in the graveyard. However, the ability does not specify that Gollum is put into the graveyard. Any creature could be sacrificed to pay this cost, not just Gollum specifically. So this caveat does not apply. To see an example of this clause in action, let's take a look at this Plague Reaver. In what zone does its bottom ability function? Ordinarily, we would expect that it should function on the battlefield. But wait, the effect of this ability specifies that it moves Plague Reaver out of the graveyard. So maybe that means this ability functions only in the graveyard. Except no, the cost to activate this ability specifies that Plague Reaver is sacrificed, i.e. put into that zone. Therefore, it does not matter if this ability moves Plague Reaver out of the graveyard, it still functions while Plague Reaver is on the battlefield. Now, this is one particular area of the rules that I'm personally very impressed with. There's a surprising amount of complexity under the hood, making sure abilities only work in the zones they're supposed to. But for the most part, it's all completely invisible to players because it just works most of the time, which makes unusual cases like Gollum stick out all the more. That's all I have for you today. How did you do? Join me again next time for another daily ruling. Until then, I hope you have a great day.